My name is Sofia. I am 31 years old, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, 45 minutes from the town where I grew up. The kitchen smelled like turkey and cinnamon. It was Thanksgiving. The whole family was there. My parents, my older brother Marcus, his ex-wife, who somehow still got invited, my Aunt Linda, my grandmother. The table was set with the good plates, the ones my mother only brought out twice a year. Everyone was laughing, everyone was eating, and then my father stood up. He didn't clink his glass. He didn't clear his throat. He just stood up and looked directly at me. His face was hard. His jaw was tight. He placed both hands flat on the table and said, "Sofia, your brother needs $80,000. You're going to co-sign a loan for him." We already talked to the bank. I put my fork down. I looked at Marcus. He wouldn't look at me. He was staring at the cranberry sauce like it was the most interesting thing in the world. I looked back at my father. "No," I said. My father slammed his fist on the table so hard the gravy boat jumped and splattered brown liquid across the white tablecloth. "You are either part of this family or you are not. Choose right now." I chose. I stood up, grabbed my coat off the back of the chair, and walked out the front door into the cold November air. That was 6 years ago. I haven't been back since. But last night, at 1:47 in the morning, my phone lit up on my nightstand. 22 missed calls from Mom. Something was wrong. Or something was wanted. In my family, those two things were usually the same. I didn't answer. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My apartment was quiet. I could hear the rain tapping on the window, soft and steady. I like the rain. I moved to Portland partly because of the rain. It felt clean. It felt like the opposite of the house I grew up in, where the air was always thick with tension and the silence between arguments was just the sound of someone reloading. I sat up and turned on the bedside lamp. The warm light filled the room. I looked at my things. My bookshelf. My nursing textbooks stacked on the desk. The little succulent garden on the windowsill that I had been keeping alive for 3 years, which felt like a major accomplishment considering I couldn't keep a family alive. My phone buzzed again. Call number 23. I picked it up and read the screen. Mom. Below that, a text message. "Sofia, please answer. It's about Marcus. It's an emergency. Please." Of course it was about Marcus. It was always about Marcus. I put the phone face down on the mattress. I pulled my knees to my chest and breathed the way my therapist taught me. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through the mouth for 6. I did it 3 times. My heart rate slowed. I was not the girl who used to shake when her father raised his voice. I was a nurse. I worked 12-hour shifts in the ER. I had held a man's severed artery closed with my bare hands while waiting for the surgeon. I could handle a phone call, but I didn't have to. Not tonight. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. I filled a glass of water from the tap and stood by the window. The street below was empty and wet. Streetlights reflected off the puddles like little orange moons. I thought about the last 6 years. The silence. The rebuilding. The long, slow process of learning that I was allowed to say no. Growing up, I was the youngest by 7 years. Marcus was the golden child. He was tall, charming, athletic. He played quarterback in high school. He got a scholarship to play football at a state college. My parents treated him like a celebrity. His trophies filled the living room. His jersey was framed on the wall. When people came over, my mother would point to it and say, "That's my son. He's going to the NFL." He didn't go to the NFL. He blew out his knee junior year and dropped out. But the worship never stopped. In my parents' eyes, Marcus was always one break away from greatness. He just needed support. He just needed time. He just needed money. And that's where I came in. I was different from Marcus in every way. I was quiet. I was small. I studied hard. I didn't play sports. I worked part-time at a nursing home starting at 15, changing sheets and feeding elderly patients who couldn't hold a spoon. My parents didn't frame anything of mine. When I got accepted to nursing school, my mother said, "That's nice, Sofia. Can you pick up Marcus from the mechanic? His truck broke down again." I said yes. I always said yes. It started small, the way these things always do. "Sofia, can you lend Marcus $200? He's between jobs." "Sofia, your brother's phone got shut off. Can you add him to your plan?" "Sofia, Marcus needs new tires. It's a safety issue." You wouldn't want him driving on bad tires, would you? I was 19, making $11 an hour, eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner 5 nights a week, and I was funding my 30-year-old brother's life. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself he was going through a rough patch. I told myself this is what family does. But the rough patch never ended. It just got more expensive. When Marcus got married, my parents expected me to help pay for the wedding. Not a little. A lot. My mother called me 6 weeks before the ceremony. Sofia, we're short on the catering. It's $3,000. Your father and I can cover half. You need to cover the rest. Mom, that's my rent for 2 months, I said. Sofia. Her voice got that edge, the one that meant I was about to be called selfish. Your brother is getting married once. You can eat rice for a couple of months. Don't be dramatic. I paid. I ate rice. I ate a lot of rice. After the wedding, Marcus and his wife bought a house they couldn't afford. It was a 4-bedroom colonial in a nice neighborhood, the kind of house you buy when you think your life is going to get better any minute now. It didn't get better. Marcus kept jumping between jobs. Sales, construction, a brief attempt at flipping furniture. Nothing stuck. His wife Tanya spent money like she was trying to set a record. Within 2 years, they were drowning. My mother called me on a Tuesday night. I had just finished a double shift. My feet were swollen. I had blood on my scrubs that wasn't mine. Sofia, they're going to lose the house, she said. Her voice was shaking. The bank sent a letter. They're 3 months behind. Your father can't sleep. Mom, how much? They need $12,000 to catch up. I sat on the edge of my bed. $12,000. I had $14,000 in savings. It was everything I had. Every extra shift. Every holiday I worked instead of taking off. Every birthday where I told my friends I didn't want gifts, just cash. Mom, that's my emergency fund. That's my entire savings. This is an emergency, she snapped. Your brother is going to be homeless. His wife is going to leave him. You want that on your conscience? I transferred the money the next day. I remember staring at my bank account afterward. The number stared back at me like an accusation. $412 left. I cried in the shower so my roommate wouldn't hear. Did Marcus say thank you? No. Did anyone acknowledge what I had given up? No. At Christmas that year, Marcus showed up wearing a new leather jacket. Tanya had a fresh set of acrylic nails and highlights. I was wearing the same boots I had worn for 3 years with the sole peeling away from the toe. My grandmother noticed. She pulled me aside in the kitchen. Sofia, she whispered, squeezing my hand. You look tired, baby. I'm fine, Grandma. No, you're not. She looked at me with those sharp old eyes that missed nothing. You're giving too much. I wanted to cry. She was the only one who saw me. But I didn't cry. I just hugged her and said, it's okay. It wasn't okay. But I didn't know how to stop. Saying no in my family was like pulling the pin on a grenade. The explosion wasn't worth it. Or so I thought. The real breaking point came 6 years ago. Thanksgiving. Marcus had gotten divorced. Tanya finally left after she found out he had gambled away their tax refund at a casino in Reno. The house was gone. The savings were gone. Marcus moved back in with my parents at 35 years old, sleeping in his childhood bedroom surrounded by his old football trophies. I drove up for Thanksgiving because my grandmother asked me to. I almost didn't go. I had a feeling, that heavy, sick feeling in your gut that tells you something bad is coming. But Grandma said, please, Sofia, I don't know how many more Thanksgivings I've got. So I went. The dinner started fine. Turkey, stuffing, sweet potatoes with marshmallows. My grandmother had made her famous pecan pie. Everyone was being polite, which in my family meant everyone was holding their breath. Then my father stood up, and the air changed. Sofia, your brother needs $80,000. You're going to co-sign a loan for him. We already talked to the bank. The number was absurd. $80,000. I made $52,000 a year as a nurse. I had finally, after 2 years of rebuilding, gotten my savings back to $8,000. I almost laughed. Dad, I can't co-sign an $80,000 loan. That's almost 2 years of my salary. If Marcus doesn't pay, and let's be honest, that's likely, I'm the one stuck with it. He needs it for a business, my mother said quickly. She had clearly rehearsed this. A buddy of his has a landscaping company. They want to buy equipment, trucks, mowers. It's a guaranteed income. Nothing is guaranteed, I said. And Marcus has never kept a job for more than a year. Marcus finally looked up from his cranberry sauce. Thanks for the vote of confidence, sis. This isn't about confidence. This is about math. My father's face went red. He placed both hands flat on the table. You're going to do this, Sofia. You owe this family. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head. Now your brother needs help and you're going to sit there and count pennies? I paid for his wedding, I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. I paid to save his house. I paid his phone bill for 3 years. I've given this family over $20,000. Money I worked for. Money I needed. And not once, not one single time, has anyone said thank you. The table went silent. My grandmother was looking at her plate. My aunt was staring at the wall. Marcus was clenching his jaw. My father leaned forward. If you don't sign that loan, don't bother coming back. I looked at my mother. She was nodding along with him. She didn't say a word in my defense. She never did. I looked at my grandmother. She had tears in her eyes, but she was shaking her head slightly. No, her eyes said. Don't do it. I stood up. I picked up my coat. Then I guess I'm not coming back, I said. I walked out. The cold air hit my face like a slap. I got in my car and drove. I didn't go back to Portland right away. I drove to a gas station and sat in the parking lot for an hour, crying so hard I couldn't see. Not because I was sad about losing them, because I was sad about never having had them. There's a difference between losing love and realizing it was never there. One is grief. The other is something worse, something that doesn't have a name. And now, 6 years later, 22 missed calls. I stood in my kitchen holding my water glass and thought about what to do. In a healthy family, 22 calls at 2 in the morning means something terrible has happened. Someone is in the hospital. There's been an accident. But in my family, emergencies were theater. Emergencies were tools. Emergencies meant someone needed something and couldn't get it any other way. The phone rang again. I walked over and looked at the screen. This time it wasn't Mom. It was Grandma. My heart squeezed. I answered. Grandma? Baby. Her voice was thin, tired. I know you don't want to hear from us. I know you have every right to hang up. But I need you to listen. I'm listening. Marcus is in trouble. Real trouble this time. The police came to your parents' house tonight. They arrested him. I sat down on the kitchen floor. The tile was cold against my legs. Arrested for what? Financial crimes, they said. Fraud. Identity theft. She paused. Baby, they said your name. They said he used your name for something. The world tilted. What do you mean, my name? I don't understand all of it, Grandma said. But the police were asking about loans, accounts. They said someone opened lines of credit using your social security number. They said it's been going on for over a year. I felt like someone had poured ice water down my spine. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Grandma, are you telling me Marcus stole my identity? I don't know, baby. I don't know the details. Your mother is hysterical. She keeps saying it's a mistake, that Marcus would never do something like that. But the police had papers, Sofia. Lots of papers. I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I couldn't. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. My hands were trembling, but my mind was already in triage mode. That's what nursing does to you. When everything is falling apart, you assess, you prioritize, you act. I pulled up my credit report. I hadn't checked it in about 3 months. That was a mistake. I stared at the screen. 4 accounts I had never opened. 2 credit cards, one with a $19,000 balance. A personal line of credit for $25,000. A small business loan for $32,000 under a landscaping company I had never heard of. Total, over $76,000. All in my name, all with my social security number. All with an address I didn't recognize. Marcus hadn't asked me to co-sign that Thanksgiving. When I said no, he didn't accept it. He just found another way. He took my identity and co-signed for himself. I thought about that dinner 6 years ago. His silence. The way he stared at the cranberry sauce. He wasn't embarrassed. He was already planning. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to run to the bathroom. I knelt on the tile floor and threw up. Then I sat there, forehead against the cool porcelain, and let the reality sink in. My brother, who I had fed and funded and forgiven for my entire adult life, had committed a federal crime against me. Not out of desperation, not out of confusion, out of entitlement. In his mind, my money was his money. My credit was his credit. My identity was just another resource to be harvested. But here's the thing they didn't know. They thought I found out tonight. They thought the police raid was the first I'd heard of it. They were wrong. I found out 11 weeks ago. I had gotten an alert from my credit monitoring service. I hadn't panicked. I hadn't called my mother. I had done what I always do when things go wrong. I went to work, but not the hospital. A different kind of work. I had called a lawyer named Davis who specialized in identity theft. I had filed a report with the FTC. I had submitted affidavits to every lender. I had placed a hard freeze on my credit. And 3 weeks ago, I had walked into the police station with a folder containing 86 pages of evidence. The fraudulent applications, the IP addresses traced to my parents' home router, the signature on the loan applications that looked like mine but looped the wrong way on the lowercase f. The police didn't show up at my parents' house by accident. They showed up because I sent them there. I had given them everything they needed. My phone was still on the kitchen floor. I picked it up. I had new messages. From Mom. Sofia, the police arrested. Marcus, please call me. From an unknown number. Probably my father's new phone. This is your father. Call home now. From Grandma. I hope you're okay, baby. I love you no matter what. I texted Grandma back. I love you too. I'll explain everything soon. Then I got dressed. I put on my good jeans, a clean white shirt, a warm jacket. I brushed my hair. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked calm. I looked like a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. Because I did. The drive to my hometown took 45 minutes in the early morning with no traffic. The sun hadn't come up yet. The highway was dark and empty. I didn't listen to music. I just drove. I went directly to my grandmother's apartment. She had moved out of my parents' house 2 years ago, after a fight about something I never got the full story on. She opened the door in her bathrobe. She looked small and old and worried. "Baby," she said, and pulled me into a hug. I held her tight. She smelled like lavender and coffee. "Grandma, sit down. I need to tell you something." We sat at her kitchen table. She poured me coffee in a chipped blue mug. I told her everything. Not just about the identity theft. About all of it. The $20,000 I had given over the years. The wedding, the mortgage, the phone bills, the boots with the peeling soles, the rice, the double shifts. She listened without interrupting. Her eyes got wet, but she didn't cry. When I finished, she reached across the table and held my hand. "I knew," she said quietly. "I knew they were taking from you. I tried to talk to your mother. She told me to mind my business. She said you were happy to help. I was never happy to help, Grandma. I was afraid to say no. I know, baby. And I should have said something louder. That's on me. It's not on you. Some of it is." She squeezed my hand. "So you went to the police?" "Yes. Before tonight? 11 weeks ago." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "That's real good. You're not mad?" "Mad?" She almost smiled. "You did what I wish I'd had the courage to do 30 years ago with your grandfather. You protected yourself." She paused. "Your mother is going to call you. She's going to beg. She's going to threaten. She's going to say things that will hurt. Are you ready for that?" "Yes." "And Marcus?" "Marcus committed a felony. That's between him and the court." My grandmother stood up. She walked to the counter and came back with a slice of pecan pie on a plate. She set it in front of me. "Eat," she said. "You're too thin." I ate the pie. It tasted like every good memory I had from childhood. The kitchen was quiet. The sun was coming up outside, turning the sky pink and gold through the lace curtains. My phone rang. "Mom," I answered. "Sofia." "Oh, thank God." "Listen to me. Marcus's lawyer says if you tell the police it was a misunderstanding, that you authorized the accounts, they'll drop the charges. It becomes a civil matter. We can work it out in family." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "Your brother is in a cell, Sofia. A cell. He can't survive that. He's not built for it. He should have thought about that before he stole $76,000 from me. He didn't steal. He borrowed. He was going to pay it back. With what money, Mom? He hasn't held a steady job in 10 years. You are so cold," she hissed. "You have always been cold. You come here with your scrubs and your sensible shoes and you act like you're better than us. But you're not. You're just mean." I looked at my grandmother across the table. She was watching me with steady eyes. She mouthed the words, "Stay strong." "I'm not cold, Mom. I'm done. There's a difference. If you do this, you are not my daughter. You stopped treating me like your daughter a long time ago. You treated me like an ATM. And when the ATM said insufficient funds, you let Dad threaten to disown me. So don't talk to me about family. Silence. Heavy, toxic silence. The lawyer says it could be 2 to 4 years, she whispered. Then he should take a plea deal, I said. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. My grandmother reached over and gently took the phone from my hand. She turned it off and set it on the counter. That's enough for today, she said. I stayed at my grandmother's apartment that morning. We didn't talk about Marcus or my parents. She showed me photos of her garden. She told me about a man at her church who kept asking her to dance at the potluck socials. He's got a bad hip but a good heart, she said. And I laughed for the first time in what felt like weeks. I drove back to Portland that afternoon. The rain had stopped and the sun was out, turning everything bright and sharp. I felt hollow but clean, like a house after the furniture has been removed. Empty, yes, but also full of space, full of possibility. Over the next 4 months, the case moved through the system. I didn't have to do much. The evidence was clear. The DA's office handled it. Marcus's court-appointed lawyer tried to argue that it was a family misunderstanding, but the judge wasn't persuaded. Forged digital signatures and fake addresses don't happen by accident. Marcus took a plea. 18 months in a minimum security facility plus 3 years probation and full restitution. My mother called me the day of the sentencing. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I listened to it once. You destroyed this family. I hope you're proud. I deleted it. My father never called. Not once. I think in his own way, he knew I was right. Or maybe he just didn't care enough to try. Either way, his silence was the most honest thing he ever gave me. I went back to my life. I worked my shifts. I paid my bills. I went to therapy every 2 weeks. I started running in the mornings, just short distances at first, then longer. There is something about running that feels like practice for the rest of life. You keep going even when your lungs burn. You keep going even when your legs say stop. And eventually you realize you are stronger than the voice that tells you to quit. A year after the sentencing, I met a man named James at a coffee shop near the hospital. He was a high school teacher. He had kind eyes and a quiet laugh, and he didn't ask me for a single thing on our first date except whether I wanted cream in my coffee. We took things slow. I was terrified, honestly. I kept waiting for the moment he would need something from me. Money, a favor, a sacrifice. But the moment never came. He just showed up. He brought me soup when I was sick. He texted me good morning every day. He asked me about my patients, and he actually listened to the answers. One evening, we were sitting on my couch watching a movie. He paused it and turned to me. You tense up every time your phone rings, he said gently. I've noticed. Old habit. Want to talk about it? I looked at him. I had never told anyone the full story. My therapist knew pieces. My coworker knew I was estranged from my family. But no one knew everything. I told James everything. The money, the threats, the Thanksgiving table, the identity theft, the police report, all of it. When I finished, he didn't look at me with pity. He didn't look at me with horror. He just put his arm around me and said, You did the right thing, and I'm glad you're here. I cried. Not the ugly, desperate crying from the gas station 6 years ago. Clean crying. The kind that washes things away instead of drowning you. My grandmother calls me every Sunday. She tells me about her garden and the man from church whose name, it turns out, is Harold. She went dancing with him last month. My hip is fine, she told me. His is the problem. But we managed. She never brings up my parents unless I ask. And I rarely ask. Marcus got released 4 months ago. I know because the victim notification system sent me an alert. I didn't feel anything when I read it. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not fear. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Like reading about weather in a city you used to live in. Last week, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was Marcus. The letter was short. 3 sentences. I read it standing in the kitchen with the rain tapping on the window. I didn't respond. Not because I'm cruel, because I've learned that responding is how the cycle starts again. A letter becomes a phone call, becomes a visit, becomes a favor, becomes another $20,000, and another set of peeling boots. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe one day I'll read it again and feel something different. Maybe I won't. Either way, it's not my emergency anymore. People might think I was heartless for turning my brother in. People might think I should have handled it privately, kept it in the family, found a way to forgive. But forgiveness without accountability is just permission. And I was done giving permission to people who used it to rob me. I didn't destroy my family. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped volunteering to be the wreckage. Last Sunday, my grandmother called. She told me Harold brought her flowers. Daisies. They're simple, she said. But they're real. I'm too old for roses. Roses are for people who are still trying to impress each other. I laughed. Grandma, are you in love? I'm in like, she said. At my age, that's better. After we hung up, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The rain had stopped. The street was shining. James was coming over for dinner. I was making pasta, nothing fancy, just garlic and olive oil and fresh basil from the little herb garden I keep on the windowsill. My apartment was warm. My life was quiet, not the tense, suffocating quiet of my childhood, but the good kind, the kind you choose. I am 31 years old. I am a nurse. I live in Portland, Oregon, in a one-bedroom apartment that I pay for with money I earned. No one has the key except me and the man I trust. My credit is clean. My conscience is clear. And my phone, when it rings, doesn't make me flinch anymore. Like and subscribe if this story moved you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're the one in your family who gives too much, who works the hardest, who never hears thank you, hear me say it now. Thank you. And it's okay to stop.